السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. لأن الحرب في سوريا هي من أسوأ الكوارث الإنسانية في هذا القرن، ولأنهم يبحثون عن الحقيقة بعيدا عن الترويجات الإعلامية، قرروا القدوم إلى المنطقة، إلى الميدان، لتقفي وقائع ما يجري في هذا الصراع. حكاية سوريا بعيون شاب إيرلندي من الداخل. معكم زينب صفار، تابعونا. الشعب الأوروبي الذي صنف الأكثر تعاطفاً مع وصول اللاجئين السوريين إلى بلاده هو الإيرلندي، بحسب دراسة لجنة الإنقاذ الدولية في استطلاع للرأي في 12 دولة أوروبية. وتشير الدراسة التي نشرت في أواخر عام 2016 إلى أن 9 من كل 10 مشاركين في إيرلندا، أي 87%، أعربوا عن قدر من التعاطف مع اللاجئين السوريين الذين وصلوا إلى بلادهم. وأعقبت إيرلندا إسبانيا وألمانيا والبرتغال. من جانب ثان، يظهر البحث أن 39% من الشعب الإيرلندي أعرب عن قلقهم إزاء الضغط الذي يمارسه اللاجئون على نظام الرعاية الاجتماعية للدولة، في حين عبر 36% منهم عن توجسهم من أن يضغط اللاجئون على الخدمات العامة مثل التعليم والصحة والإسكان. فيما رأى أكثر من ربع الشعب الإيرلندي الذين شملهم الاستطلاع أن ذلك سيكلف الحكومة الكثير من المال. وفي حين قال أقل من الربع من المستطلعين الإيرلنديين إن اللاجئين يشكلون خطراً على أمن الدولة، كانت المواقف تجاه اللاجئين في جمهورية التشيكية ورومانيا وسلوفاكيا أكثر سلبية بشكل ملحوظ، إذ أعرب 61% من التشيك عن قلقهم من أن اللاجئين يشكلون خطراً على الأمن القومي. جوليس فيتسايمونز، الناشط الاجتماعي من العاصمة الإيرلندية دبلن، يحدثنا من الداخل عن سبب زيارته الأولى إلى سوريا، وهل ما لمسه من مشاهدات يشبه ما تصوره وسائل الإعلام الإيرلندية عن الصراع، وكيف يقارب الإيرلنديون مجريات الوضع في سوريا، وما هي أبرز الأنشطة التي قام بها أثناء زيارته تلك. Joolis Fitzsimmons, social activist from Dublin, Ireland. Welcome to الداخل from the inside, sir.
Thank you.
You're always welcome, Joolis. Today, Joolis, you are in the heart of Syria for the first time. This war-torn country for the last 6 years. This is your first visit to this place. Why are you here?
Well, what brought me here is that I started to follow the conflict in Syria maybe 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. And when I started to follow it, I knew nothing beforehand, but when I started to follow it, the more that I found, it was totally crazy. The entire situation. I was looking at what was happening in Syria just from far away, from reports from social media from Syria, and the reporting about it in my country, like two totally different things, but the actual situation in Syria was the most crazy situation that I had seen. So
it's a situation that is going on not only in Syria but also in various countries in the Arab region. What brought your attention the most in Syria that made you come all the way from Ireland to this country?
Well, I guess I just took a chance. There's a chap who was organising a trip, so I thought I should just go.
Weren't you afraid of coming here?
I was a bit, yeah. I was before I came. Actually, I didn't know what to expect. You know, going to visit a country, a lot of what you hear about, it's impossible to know what the situation in a country is. And I would say I'm very pleasantly, it's been a very good surprise for me to see, you know, I arrived into Damascus and it was just a normal city, like bustling, lots of young people, lots of every kind of people everywhere doing...
So you were surprised. This was not
what your media outlets were talking about?
Well, not what certainly not what my media outlets told me, but even by myself, I didn't understand. I didn't know what the Syrian people were feeling. I thought maybe, maybe everybody was scared. Everybody was hiding in their house all day. If you walked on the street, you might be in danger of everything. But that's not the case. But I mean, obviously, the people here are still suffering from terrible terrorism or attacks all the time.
What captured your attention the most here in Damascus? We're going to talk about Aleppo later.
A lot of things, and I think, I don't know, I've been here for 7 days, for 1 week, and
will you come back?
Yeah, I definitely intend to, yes. But I think I've taken in a huge amount, and it won't be for a long time until until I've absorbed everything. But I mean, just my first coming into Damascus, I was amazed. It was just we went straight into where the university is, and there were just thousands of young people, everyone having a very thriving city. That was really interesting. And just from speaking to ordinary Syrian people, just their strength and their resilience, and how strong they are as individually and as people.
How did the people treat you here? How did they interact with you as a foreigner?
Just incredibly welcoming, but also very respectful. So yeah, I found that they gave me a lot of space, but so I didn't feel uncomfortable, for example. But they were also completely welcoming, very friendly, very funny. Everything, and these are from people who have been through something which we can't understand, the kind of pain,
suffering, and pain, yes, and losing their dear ones and families. The families were dismembered, practically speaking. But let me take you now back to your home country, to Ireland, to Dublin. How do the people, or how do they approach what is going on here in Syria? What do they know about it?
They don't know, well, they don't know very much. And to some extent that's a good thing, because the media story that is pushed on them, it's very untrue. It's completely false. It's very untrue. But I think the good thing is that I think in any kind of news, a lot of people, they don't fully pay attention. They see the news, it's on, and they understand that there's a conflict going on. They don't fully understand who the different sides are. Okay, so I think that's the majority of the people. But then there's maybe some very intelligent people who follow all of this our Western media viewpoint, and so they're
narrative.
Yeah, they're very knowledgeable about this. So they know all of the facts that are produced from the BBC and all of our newspapers. So these people have, so that they are convinced, and they have certain things to back them up. For example, in the West, in Ireland and in the West generally, like in my country, all of the main politicians, they all agree with this narrative. All of the media, they all agree with this narrative. All of these NGOs, like Amnesty International, and all of the local NGOs, they're all saying the same thing. And also we have some small amount of Syrian refugees. So there's Syrian refugees. So these Syrian people in Ireland, they say the same thing as well. So when you take all these things together, they're in this little bubble, and this is the story and this is the truth. And if anybody,
why weren't you, Joolis, as a young man, also in this bubble?
It was because previous to this, I forget entirely how, but I knew beforehand that imperialism, Western imperialism, is bad, and it's always bad, since forever, since 500 years ago.
Yes.
And so I knew that this, even before the Syrian conflict had started, and even before I had done any, back up until 2015, I knew nothing about the Syrian conflict, but I knew anyway, before I started, that Western imperialism And, you know, their allies like Saudi Arabia and Israel and Turkey and all this, these are always bad, no matter what the details are, in every country that they go to, and they go to every country. So that's my starting not assumption, I guess, or
perspective, your approach first.
Which is backed up by 500 years of atrocities, like Europeans colonizing Africa, America, South America, Arabia, Asia, and just creating lots of atrocities. So that was my starting assumption, but other people don't have this, unfortunately, I think.
Now, as a young man, what does the youth in Ireland know about Syria?
Well, the biggest thing, I suppose, the people...
Do they know? Are they interested, for example? Do they care?
Well, one thing about Ireland is on the very far side of Europe, and the Syrian conflict is far away, so that they know...
But Latin America is also far away.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they're not hugely knowledgeable. Well, yeah, I mean, there would be generally...
Because you, as an activist in the issue of housing, and you tend to say that the people there are so much overwhelmed by this problem, and you try to find solutions. Some people, they don't have houses, proper houses, and there is a big issue, a big problem. And now you have some refugees, though the number of refugees who came to your country are so minimal compared to other countries, but still they are making, for example, it's an issue in your country.
Yeah.
Don't the people start here to pose questions, to try to get to know more about what's the issue with those people coming to our country as refugees?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, there's a bit of a solidarity movement. It's quite big. I mean, it's small, but this has a good reputation amongst, say, activist type people. Solidarity. I mean, everyone should have solidarity with refugees. Yes. Unfortunately, there's a big hole in the Irish, say, more socially engaged people. I mean, for example, Ireland was okay. Was pretty good at. I mean, the Irish people have quite strong pro-Palestine, anti-Israel beliefs. They have quite strong for example, against the war in Iraq, and they're quite strong generally supporting refugees. But there's a problem, like in Syria, there's been no anti-war on Syria. It's actually, in fact, they use euphemisms. They use different language. So, but they kind of support, or they're okay with secret war, with war on Syria. So it's a big problem. There should be an anti-war movement to support against the war on Syria, but there isn't. So
like the Stop the War Coalition, for example.
Yeah, something like this. It's a failure on our part, and we should hopefully, when I go back, because I've spoken with many of my friends individually, and individually they all feel that there should be some kind of...
There should be something done.
Yeah.
More into this issue.
Yeah, but we haven't formed a group yet, so we should.
Right, Joolis Fitz-Simons, we're going to stop now for a short break, and then afterwards we're going to talk a bit more intensively about your visit to Aleppo, but after the break. إذا فاصل قصير ونعود، لا تذهبوا بعيدا.
سافر نحو 30 إيرلندياً إلى سوريا للمشاركة في الصراع هناك خلال السنوات الأخيرة بحسب معلومات عائدة إلى العام 2015. ولا يعتقد المراقبون في إيرلندا أن البلد يعد هدفاً للإرهاب المتطرف، بل يرون أنه يستخدم كنقطة انتقال للإرهابيين. جوليس فيتسايمونز الناشط الاجتماعي من دبلن، هل برأيه يشكل هؤلاء المتطرفون تهديداً على مجتمعهم اليوم؟
I didn't know that there was 30 Irish people from Ireland. I'm sure it's true. Yeah, I mean, of course, I think there will inevitably be a terrorist attack in Ireland. I think that's probably a fact of life that people generally have to get used to. Supposedly, if this is this is the system that this is the way the world is going.
Why would Ireland be subject to a terrorist attack?
Well, I mean,
they are always on the fence when it comes to politics.
Yeah, sure, they are.
But they are driven more and more towards the NATO, for example.
A lot, yeah. I mean, like, I think the Irish political class, they're very, they're quite greedy, for example. So they let America use one of our airports to bring soldiers and weapons from America out to bomb the Middle East, and they bring and coming back, they have CIA airplanes with people
flights
to be tortured in Guantanamo Bay. That's one thing, for example. I mean,
So it is, as researchers said, it's a transport hub.
Yeah,
more or less.
I mean, I think maybe one reason why Ireland they wouldn't want to attack Ireland is because it's quite a safe haven, I'd say, for terrorists, but like for financial terrorists, it's like Ireland is a very small country, tiny country, but it's a tax haven for Europe. There's lots of every company.
But you know, it's a very small country, but yet they are sending like $53 million to Idlib, according to Gol. Why? Why to Idlib and not to any other place which is devastated by the war, which needs help, which has many, for example, displaced people? Why they are not sending this money or part of the money to these areas?
I think it's even more than 53 million. I was looking on. I was trying to research this. There's a lot of big list of contracts for Syria, and it's Irish NGOs are getting even bigger. But this 53 million was specifically from the USAID, the American state.
The USAID, yes.
Yeah. I've asked Gol on social media when I found out about this. I've looked at their website. You know, Ireland has a good reputation somewhere about helping people and so on. So I think these NGOs, they are capitalising on this. Ireland has done a lot of kind of charitable, and it's like quite popular in some places. But yeah, I mean, like for example, the woman who's in charge of Gol for Syria, like Gol for Syria, takes the money from the American government. They bring it to Turkey as their centre, and then they put all the money into they don't travel, as far as I understand, they don't travel to Idlib. They give it to some NGO, some
to transmit it to the people.
Yeah, so I don't know. This is totally crazy. But the woman who's in charge of this, she is calling for no-fly zone, aka war against Syria, Russia. So this is totally crazy. Like, I mean, it should be ruining the reputation of these NGOs, which shouldn't really be all that. That they're not really that good anyway. They provide relief, which is good, but they also these charities are taking over governments and reshaping a lot of poorer countries. But anyway, the woman from Gol is calling for the West to start war on Syria, which is crazy for a supposedly peaceful NGO to do. But they're totally unaccountable. Like it used to be that the Irish government would give money, for example, to the Syrian government to help with hospitals or something like that, for example. But now the Irish government gives money to, and every other Western government gives money to NGOs which do the work instead of the Syrian government or instead of these governments. And they do stuff against the Syrian government. So,
right. Yeah. Now, allow me to take you back now to your trip to Aleppo. Tell me about what you've seen, what you've heard in Aleppo.
Yeah, well, we drove in. I had followed the conflict. The
Of course, you've read about Aleppo, but today you had a first-hand experience over there.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had followed very closely. There had been very good reporting about the situation, like how Aleppo was liberated. So I visited that. Yeah, we came in by the bus. We had to take the side road. We couldn't take the highway because Al-Qaeda controls part of it. And we came through lots and lots of quite destroyed, heavily damaged towns on the way in. We came in through the industrial zones, a lot of the bigger factories and the power plant and other things which had been destroyed, I assume as well dismantled. I think so many factories were stolen. But then, yeah, but then we came in through western Aleppo, which was all fine. It was like quite just a normal big city. And then then we came into the city centre, and yeah, well, yeah, it was tough. It was so when we got into the city centre, it was very cold outside. But a lot of the buildings were bombed out. There were no streetlights. The power plant hadn't started, so people could only work by generators. It was just generally very, very cold. That was when we got in during the nighttime. Our experience during so we spent 2 days there. We spent the most amount of time with young people. So we organised some art classes with children, and they were facilitated by these groups of youth from Aleppo who had been helping the children. So and both of those, the very young kids, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, and the youth who were 20s, these were wonderful. And that made it quite a positive thing. Speaking with them and with other normal people around Aleppo, we walked around the city. We did walk through the heavily destroyed areas, which was terrible. I had the benefit. This was my first time in Aleppo, first time in Syria. I didn't know what it was like beforehand. I had no idea.
Right, Joolis Fitzaimon, social activist from Dublin, Ireland. We are so happy to listen to your first hand experience here in Syria, in Damascus and in Aleppo. Are you planning to go to any other places?
The next time I come back, and I will come back, I mean, this is an amazing country with so much stuff to see. So
right, you're always welcome. Joolis, hope to see you sometime soon in the future. You're always welcome. إذا لقاء جديد في الأسبوع المقبل مع ضيف جديد وقضية جديدة، ودائما من الداخل. المزيد من التواصل بريدنا theinsight@almayadeen.net وصفحتنا على الفيسبوك. من الداخل، من كل فريق عمل من الداخل، من كل الميادين من دمشق. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.